Right now, somewhere, someone is getting complimented in front of a group of strangers, and before their brain even finishes processing the words, their face is already turning red. Here's what's strange about that. You cannot blush on command. Actors can cry on cue, force a laugh, fake a gasp, but nobody on earth can make their cheeks flush red just by trying. Blushing might be the only human expression completely immune to willpower. And it gets stranger. You can turn deep red over something laughably small, a compliment, a typo someone points out, getting caught talking to yourself. Your body reacts like you're in real danger over stakes that are, objectively, nothing. You can talk yourself out of almost any other feeling, slow your breathing, unclench your jaw, force a calm voice. But heat keeps climbing up your neck anyway, completely unbothered by your effort to reason with it. So why does the most public, most watched part of your body, your face, betray you like this? And why, no matter how hard you concentrate, can you not make it stop? Here's the answer that feels right and is completely wrong. You might assume blushing is simply feeling embarrassed showing on your skin. Emotion goes in, red face comes out. Except that can't be the whole story. You can feel embarrassed and stay pale as ever. And you can blush furiously over things that involve no shame at all, being praised in public, hearing your name called out in a crowd, even remembering an old embarrassing memory while sitting completely alone with nobody watching. If blushing were just shame paint, none of that should happen. There's something far more specific going on here, a switch that isn't reacting to emotion in general, but one particular kind of exposure. And whatever that switch is, it clearly doesn't take orders from the rational, talking part of your brain, the part that can usually be reasoned with. You can't negotiate with it, apologize to it, or convince it the stakes are low. To find it, we have to go under the skin, into a nervous system that was never built to ask your permission. Start with the part that actually explains why you can't stop it. Your nervous system runs on two separate control panels. One is the panel you already know, the voluntary one. It moves your hand, blinks your eyes on command, lifts your eyebrows when you want to look surprised. You are the one holding that remote. The other panel is the autonomic nervous system, and you were never handed the remote for it. It runs your heartbeat, your digestion, your pupils dilating in a dark room, your sweat glands kicking in before a job interview. It reacts faster than conscious thought and answers to nobody's willpower, not even yours. Blushing lives entirely on this second panel. The blood vessels in your face are wired straight into the autonomic system, the same wiring that handles heart rate and sweat, and there is no conscious nerve pathway that lets your thinking brain reach in and say, "Don't." You can tell your face to stop smiling. You cannot tell a blood vessel to stop dilating because your face never gave you that button in the first place. So what actually flips the switch? It starts with a part of your brain called the amygdala, your built-in threat detector, constantly scanning for danger. Most of the time, it's watching for physical threats, a loud noise, a sudden movement. But it also treats a very specific kind of moment as a threat: getting caught, being watched and judged, especially when you didn't choose the spotlight. The instant your amygdala flags that moment, it fires off the sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight response, and adrenaline floods your bloodstream. In most of your body, adrenaline does the opposite of what happens on your face. It clenches blood vessels shut in your arms, your stomach, your hands, pulling blood away from the skin and toward your muscles, preparing you to run or fight. That's why people go pale with fear. But your facial blood vessels are wired differently than almost anywhere else in your body. They're packed with a specific kind of receptor, a beta-adrenergic receptor, that reacts to the exact same adrenaline by doing the opposite, flinging the vessels wide open instead of clamping them shut. Same chemical, same alarm, opposite instruction, and it just so happens to land in the one place everyone can see. Your face isn't malfunctioning, it's running the correct program on hardware built to respond backwards. This is the exact same alarm system that makes your heart pound before walking into a job interview or a first date. All the difference is which downstream instruction gets sent and to which blood vessels. So that still leaves one question hanging. Why the face specifically? Adrenaline is pumping throughout your entire bloodstream, not just the vessels above your collar. The answer is in your skin's construction. Facial skin, and the skin on your ears, neck, and upper chest, is thinner than the skin almost anywhere else on your body, and it's threaded with a much denser network of blood vessels sitting much closer to the surface. Your forearm has blood vessels too, plenty of them, but they're buried deeper and the skin over them is thicker, so even a strong flush there barely shows. Your face is basically a window, not a wall. When those beta receptors fling the vessels open, the extra blood isn't hiding under a layer of insulation, it's sitting almost directly beneath a thin, pale, practically translucent surface, lighting up like a lamp with the shade removed. That's why you never hear about someone blushing through their shin. The reaction might genuinely be happening in vessels elsewhere too, faintly, but the only place built to actually display it is the one place a face-to-face conversation guarantees everyone is already looking.
And here's the detail that should really bother you. You don't need anyone in the room. Blushing doesn't actually require an audience. It only requires the idea of one. Replay an old embarrassing memory in your head while sitting completely alone, and the same blood vessels light up, because your brain is running a live simulation of being watched, and the amygdala can't tell the difference between an imagined audience and a real one. Charles Darwin noticed something like this over a century and a half ago. He called blushing the most peculiar and the most human of all expressions, and he was struck by one detail in particular. Animals don't do it. A dog can look guilty. A dog cannot blush. Darwin even studied people who were born blind, who had never once seen a blushing face to imitate, and found that they blushed anyway, in the same situations as everyone else. That ruled out the idea that blushing is a learned performance, copied from watching others. It's something closer to a built-in reflex tied to one very specific ability: imagining yourself through someone else's eyes, which is very possibly why no other animal does it. Blushing may require a mind sophisticated enough to model what other minds think of it. You can even test this on yourself with something that didn't exist in Darwin's lifetime: a video call. Log on to a meeting where your own face is staring back at you in a little box on the screen. Get asked a question you weren't ready for, and watch the heat rise before you've said a single word. There's no physical room, no real proximity, nobody within arm's reach, just a rectangle of pixels representing the idea of being watched. That's more than enough. The amygdala doesn't check your GPS coordinates before it fires. It only checks whether, as far as your brain can tell, eyes are on you and judging what it sees. Here's where it gets genuinely strange, though, because this harmless reflex has a failure mode, and the failure mode reveals something important about the whole system. For most people, a blush comes, does its job, and fades in a minute. But for some people, the spotlight detector gets stuck in a feedback loop. The sequence goes like this: you start to blush, you notice yourself blushing, and noticing it registers as its own fresh moment of exposure. Now you're not just embarrassed about the original thing, you're embarrassed about visibly being embarrassed. That fresh spike of self-consciousness fires the amygdala again, which pushes out more adrenaline, which deepens the blush further. The reflex feeds itself. In its extreme form, this is called erythrophobia, a genuine diagnosable fear of blushing, where some people become so afraid of turning red that they avoid restaurants, meetings, even relationships, purely to dodge the moment. Some of them describe scanning a room before they even sit down, calculating where the light is dimmest, or steering conversations away from anything personal, all just to lower the odds of the one thing they can't will away. And what some of them have tried is remarkable: a surgery called endoscopic thoracic sympathectomy, where surgeons go in and physically sever the sympathetic nerve fibers that run to the face, cutting the wire between the amygdala's alarm and the blood vessels in your cheeks. It works. Patients who undergo it largely stop blushing, but the nervous system doesn't just quietly accept losing that outlet. In a large share of patients, the suppressed signal reroutes itself and comes out somewhere else entirely, most often as heavy, uncontrollable sweating on the back, chest, or thighs. A side effect so common, doctors gave it its own name: compensatory sweating. You can sever the wire to one instrument, but the orchestra keeps playing. The body doesn't give up on broadcasting what it's feeling, it just finds a new stage. And that's really the bigger pattern hiding underneath all of this. Blushing isn't some isolated glitch, it's one member of an entire family of signals your autonomic nervous system leaks out whether you want it to or not. Your pupils widen when something genuinely interests you, and no amount of concentration can shrink them back down on command. Your skin breaks into goosebumps under a sudden chill of fear, a reflex left over from ancestors with enough body hair for it to actually matter. Your palms sweat before a presentation, whether or not you feel ready. Every one of these signals runs on the same uncontrollable panel as blushing, and every one of them is, in a sense, more honest than your words are. That's precisely why polygraph machines don't bother listening to what you say. They measure your skin's conductivity and your heart rate instead, betting that the autonomic nervous system will tell the truth even when you won't. Evolutionary biologists have a name for this category of signal: honest signaling. A message is only trustworthy if it's difficult or impossible to fake, and a blush qualifies perfectly. Psychologist Dacher Keltner ran studies showing that people who visibly blush after making a mistake are rated as more trustworthy and are forgiven faster than people who show no reaction at all, even when the mistake is identical. Your blush isn't a bug embarrassing you in front of the group. It's a costly, unfakeable apology broadcast straight from your nervous system before your mouth even opens. Proof that you know you slipped, sent in a currency nobody can counterfeit. And humans aren't even the only species running this kind of unfakeable broadcast, just the only one doing it with a blush. A mandrel's face flushes bright red and blue with its stress hormones. A turkey's waddle darkens with blood flow depending on its mood in the moment. Different wiring, same underlying trick. Take a signal that would otherwise be invisible and route it through skin nobody can consciously override, precisely because the whole point is that it can't be faked on demand. So the next time your face goes hot in front of a room full of people, that isn't your face betraying you. It's a multi-million-year-old messaging system doing exactly what it was built to do, telling everyone around you something true, whether you approved the message or not. Which raises a genuinely interesting question worth sitting with. If you could switch it off completely, permanently, with zero side effects, would you actually want to? A world where nobody ever visibly cared what anyone else thought of them might be a world with a lot less trust in it, not more. Or is the involuntary part the entire point? Drop your answer in the comments, and if questions like this, the why hiding behind something you do every single day, are the kind of thing that lives rent-free in your head, like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot more of your own body left to explain.